This is the 7th webinar of the Copernicus Accelerator. I'm Thomas, and I have the great pleasure to introduce you today to Fabrice Testa. Fabrice, are you with us?
Yeah. Hello everybody.
Hello. I'll briefly introduce Fabrice. Fabrice is a serial entrepreneur and deep tech expert. He has been involved in the launch of several tech startups that have generated multi-million revenues. He's a board member of the Luxembourg Business Angel Network. He's very passionate about space, and Fabrice is an investor member of Space Angels, which is active globally. He's founding co-chair member of the Luxembourg Space Tech Angels, a member of the IBAN Space Executive Committee, and last but not least, he's also part of our community as a mentor in the Copernicus Accelerator. So some of you might have met him already in the opening bootcamp that we had in Tallinn. So Fabrice, thank you again for joining us. The floor is yours.
Yes, so hi everybody, good afternoon. I'm very happy to be here with you to share my experience as an entrepreneur and as an angel investor. I think that first of all, before to start in my presentation, Thomas, we have a quick poll in order to ask you two questions to the attendees. I think the first question, Thomas, is how many of you already had some discussion? Yes, did you already have contact with an investor for your startup? So if you can just type in yes or no. And the second question, have you already successfully closed a fundraising round? Yes or no? So just if you can answer the questions, and then we will share the results with you.
So basically, Fabrice, it's about half have spoken to an investor, but the vast majority has not successfully closed the fundraising round. So I think your presentation comes very timely. Okay,
that's cool. Okay, so can you just, because I see you will remove the poll, or I don't know, because I see on my screen. Okay, so let's start. So what I will explain today are mainly my personal views. I do think, however, that most investors share the same views. But okay, keep in mind that these are mine, but I think most of investors share similar, let's say, views and expectations. So, yeah, sorry. Oh, yeah, okay. So first of all, who I am. So I'm an aerospace engineer. I think that Thomas already explained a bit who I am. I have now more than 25 years in experience in startups, either as a founder, co-founder, or part of a founding team. So I face situations where I have to raise funds, either equity or debts, with banks, business angels, and venture capitalists, so VCs. After the sale of one company in 2015, I've been more involved as an advisor and business angel. I've invested, for example, in the Space Angels Network in the US. As Thomas explained, I'm a board member of the Luxembourg Business Angel Network, the ALBAN. And recently, I also co-founded the Luxembourg Space Tech Angels. It's a non-profit organization. And we are one of the official partners of the new Luxembourg Space Agency, which was officially launched last week. Also, last but not least, since I'm a bit a tech geek, I'm also part of the Abundance 360 community of Peter Diamandis. I don't know if everybody knows about Peter, but Peter is the co-founder of the Singularity University, the ISU, X Prize, and many other companies and initiatives. So the first thing I'm looking for as an investor, and I think many investors are looking for too, is what is your mission? So what gets you off the bed every morning? What passion do you have? In that respect, actually, I like the framework of the Singularity University, which is called the MTP, Massive Transformative Purpose. And the MTP has three characteristics, which is the first one is that your mission should be massive. I mean, it should be something which is enough bold, big, and able to inspire others. Why? Because in the course of in your journey as an entrepreneur, you will need, of course, to attract investors, but also collaborators, partners, and clients. So you need to have a mission which is enough inspiring for people. The other aspect is, can your project, your venture, create some real breakthrough? You know, everybody is talking today about disruption. In my opinion, disruption is a word which is often misused. But can you transform the market where you want to be active? Maybe some of you knows about Peter Thiel. He was one of the co-founders of PayPal together with Elon Musk. And Peter Thiel wrote a wonderful book, which is called 0 to 1. And in this book, Peter is talking about the secret sauce. And the secret sauce, when you identify the secret sauce, it's what can cause actually this transformation. The last point of the MTP is, why are you doing this? What's your purpose? Do you do this venture to have a job or to become rich, or to solve a big problem that can impact 1 billion lives? This is, of course, the answer that you will have to these questions may influence, let's say, the investor and what the investor is looking for. So be prepared to these questions and be prepared to explain your MTP to investors. The other, once you have identified your MTP, you should focus on a moonshot. And again, I'm using a framework from the Singularity University, where a moonshot, so which is your specific idea, the project that will allow you to skyrocket and literally go to the moon. A moonshot has three characteristics. So the first characteristic is about the problem. So are you solving a huge or at least a big problem? You have always to remember that an entrepreneur is someone that identifies a problem and comes with a solution. And to solve this problem, are you using some breakthrough technology or solution? Something that is really innovative? Actually, probably you know that we can innovate and we can make some breakthrough either with the technology, but also with some innovative business models. So you could also come with an innovative business model that somehow disrupt the market where you want to enter. The last thing is that you need to come with some solution which is radical, which was not done before, which brings a solution to a problem that was not solved so far. So have an MTP, a vision, a mission, and among your MTP, your mission, your vision, you can have one moonshot and maybe several moonshots. So your MTP is really what guides you, and the moonshot are the specific projects you are working on, and some entrepreneurs are working on several projects. And now an investor will also ask you but how you are going to make it. And how you are going to make it is all about the value proposition. So you need to be prepared to explain how you create value, how you capture this value, and finally, how you deliver this value. And regarding the value creation, actually, the value creation is linked to the idea, the technology, or let's say more generally speaking, the opportunity. So an investor will look in terms of the value creation, how you are going to create this value. So how much revenues you are going to generate. Are there clients ready to pay for such product or service? You can have the best technology, but if nobody wants to buy your service, your product, you can forget about it. In terms of capturing the value, this means that you need to attract a market size which is big enough. And so an investor will ask you what is your market size, but the competitive landscape, and what are your competitive advantages to capture this value on the market. In terms of value delivery, it's all about the organization and the team that you will put in place to execute your plan. Because you can have the best technology, best idea, you can have a market which is big enough. But if you don't have the right people to execute the plan, again, you are dead. So how many full-time people do you want to hire? Is their background relevant? And can the investor trust you as a founder? So now we have seen the three most important things that I'm looking for and that I think an investor should look for. And now I will dive in more detail expectations. Just before continuing my presentation, if you have any question, please leave them in the chat box. And after my presentation, there will be a Q&A, where I will be able to answer to some of your questions. So let's continue. Let's move on. So about expectations, because I think this was in the title of this webinar, you must understand that investors, and particularly business angels, may have quite simple or straight expectations, while your reality actually is and will be much more complex. So when you deal with investors before they invest, and also and mainly after they've invested, try to speak their language. You must understand their expectations and answer their questions as much precise as you can be. Tell simply the truth. Maybe the truth is not what they expect, but at least you say the truth, because one of the most important advice that I can give you this afternoon is always to be honest and to never lie. So be accurate, honest, never lie, and just try to understand what your investor is looking for. So, for example, if, and sorry for the image, but if you, let's say, you own a cow which produces milk, and if an investor comes and asks you, can you give me a fat-free milk? You might say, yes, it's a great expectation. So why the investor is asking you such kind of question or has such kind of expectations? Try to understand the reason why. It can be that he is a bit provocative, but there is maybe a reason for this. Maybe he wants you to overachieve. So think about it and always understand that the investor is your friend. It's not someone with whom you should be make a war. The investor wants you to succeed. So you need to understand what the investor is looking for and try to speak his language. And for example, on this slide, if an investor asks you for fat-free milk, maybe a great answer could be, yes, I understand your concern that you want fat-free milk, and this is possible, but after some industrial processing. So this would be a good answer to such kind of question or expectations from an investor. And so if you have questions, please type your questions in the chat box. I see that maybe there will be already some questions. So actually, among other questions or expectations that a business angel or an investor will have, they will want to understand if you made a wealth of research about your business idea, your business plan, what is your organization, what is the market potential, what are your plans for financing, do you have a clear exit strategy, did you put your heart into the project, or is it a side business, do you have or will you keep a skin in the game? So you will have a lot of questions from investors, and I will explain how to be prepared to this. But before to go to this point, another thing which is very important actually for an investor is what are your leadership qualities? So an investor should always consider very carefully your leadership qualities. So are you someone who is able to lead and inspire others, or are you just an executive that waits for others to make the job? And among the qualities that I'm looking for, and that I think, again, that most investors are looking for, you can find the honesty, the ability to delegate on teammates, are you a great communicator? I said during your lifetime as an entrepreneur, you will need to sell your idea to investors, but also to partners, to clients. So you need to be a great communicator if you want to be a leader. Also, do you have a great amount of confidence? Because as an entrepreneur, you will face some turbulent times and you will need to resist to stress and panic and keep moving. Also, do you always have a positive attitude? In my opinion, or being also an entrepreneur, being optimistic is probably one of the first qualities of any entrepreneur. Creativity. Sometimes in your journey, you will have to pivot to continue your business. So you need to be enough flexible and creative to adapt to a fast changing world. And last but not least, you need to have some good level of charisma. Now, about charisma, most people think that one has charisma or not, but actually it's possible to develop his own charisma. And in that respect, I strongly encourage you to read a wonderful book, which is called The Charisma Myth by Olivia Fox Cabana. And in this book, she gives a lot of tips and exercises to improve your charisma. So I really encourage you to read this book. I'm sure you will enjoy it, and potentially you will improve your charisma with this book. So as I said, you will have a lot of several meetings with investors, and during these meetings, you will have a lot of questions that will be asked by the investor. So, for example, he could ask you what is when you will be break-even, what is your burn rate. I'm meeting often entrepreneurs, and they don't know what is their burn rate. And the burn rate, for example, is paramount, because if you run out of cash, your venture is dead. So you need to be able to answer really a lot of questions from investors. And what is the secret to be able to answer all these questions? It's preparation. So the best advice I can give you this afternoon is to be prepared. Because this is the key to be able to succeed your fundraising and to convince the investor. So how to be prepared? First of all, know your technology. Know your business model. It's very important to know how you are going to generate money, cash, with your venture. Know your market. In my opinion, any entrepreneur must be a master in the market he wants to enter. You must know perfectly the market you are in. And very, very important, know your figures. I'm meeting a lot of entrepreneurs. They don't know their figures. And this is not acceptable. So you need to know your figures. How to know your figures? The best way to know your figures is to do your business plan, your financial plan yourself. Of course, you can have some help from freelancers, from advisors, but do the business plan, the financial simulations yourself. This is the best way to master your project, to master your figures, and that way you will be able to answer all the questions from the investor and to potentially convince them to put money into your venture. Okay, so now some specifics about angel investors, because most what I said before is valid for VCs, but for also as business angels. But for business angels, there are a few specifics that I would like to talk about. So first of all, keep in mind that the business angel invests his own money. And this is very different, of course, from funds that invest money from limited partners. Also, business angels has relative limited capacity versus funds or VCs. For example, within the Luxembourg Business Angel Network, our business angels typically invest tickets between 10,000 and 50,000 euro. A VC may invest between 250,000 and several millions. So also, a business angel generally wants to exit as quick as possible. And why a business angel wants to exit as quick as possible? Because, as I explained, he has limited financial capacity. So since he is investing at very early stage, generally the business angel will not be able to follow in the successive rounds and can be diluted quickly. So this is why he wants generally to exit as quick as possible, of course, with a good return. Also, some business angels are mainly motivated by helping entrepreneurs at early stage. So they prefer maybe to get their money back with some returns and to invest in another company to help another entrepreneurs, or maybe to create another company if they are former entrepreneurs. So another thing which is important about business angels is that you should know what is the reasonable return that you can give to the investor in a reasonable short time frame. And again, you need to know your maths, you need to know your figures. For example, if you want to offer to an angel investor that he doubles his money after 2 years, this means that you are offering to the business angels a 41% internal rate of return, which is, of course, very good, because today if you put your money in the bank, maybe you will have 1%. If you invest in real estate, maybe you can get 4 or 5%. Of course, investing in your venture might be much more risky for the investor. This is why the return is much bigger. But 2x after 5 years is only 15%. So on one side, we have after 2 years, 41%, and after 5 years, we have 15%. So know your figures, because I'm meeting a lot of entrepreneurs and they don't know their figures, the potential rate of return that they can offer. And I think this is important. Another figure that you need to know is the valuation of the company. So how much your company is or your project is worth. You must have some numbers in mind, even if most of the time the valuation is negotiable, but you need to have something in mind. So there are different ways to value a venture: the discounted cash flow method, the VC method. I'm not going to explain this today, but you can Google it and you will find the different methods. But what is important is to have a number in mind, because the business angel would like to know, if he puts 50K into your company, how many shares he will have for this 50K. The last point on which you could face, let's say, some discussion with angel investors is about equity or convertible loans. In my opinion, this is not so important, because some business angels prefer equity, some business angels prefer convertible loans. I think it also mainly depends what you want to offer. So be prepared. I think this is the best advice that I can give you this afternoon. So I'm almost done. So again, if you have questions, we will, in a few minutes, I will answer to your questions. But in order to finish my presentation, I would like that you meditate on this quote from Bill Gates. Maybe you already know about this quote, which is quite famous. But my advice is to be brave and don't give up, because fundraising is hard, very hard. You know, a fundraising can take between 3 and 6 months. Sometimes it can even take 9 months. So it's quite difficult to raise funds. You know, a business angel will not give his money like this. He will ask you, as I explained, a lot of questions. And so you need to meet a lot of people. So let's see what Bill Gates is saying. Bill Gates says, "There is no secret. I simply showed the plan to 1,200 people. 900 said no, and only 300 signed up. Out of those 300, only 85 did anything at all. And out of those 85, only 35 were serious. And out of those 35, 11 made me a multimillionaire." So I encourage you to be brave. I wish you the best of luck. Hopefully, after meeting 1,200 people, the best I can wish you is that you become also a multimillionaire like Bill Gates. But don't give up, because you will see that it's a journey which is very exciting, but not always very easy. So I wish you the best of luck. So thank you very much. And now we can switch to the Q&A session. If you want also to follow me, of course, you can follow me on Twitter, etc. I have also a blog which is called superpreneur.online, and the non-profit organization Luxembourg's Best Tech Angel has a new website. It's very new, so it's not so good yet, but you can also be part of the association if you want. So yes, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Fabrice. I think it's a great opportunity that you have that you're here with us today, and that you can discuss with our mentees the insights of how an investor thinks, what an investor expects. We have a few questions. Let's maybe start with the one: where can I find investors that invest in space? How do I start?
Okay, this is a great question. So thanks for asking. So actually, and this is funny because we were talking about this with Thomas just before starting the webinar. Actually, you know, there are not, unfortunately, there are not so many investors specialized in space. There are some funds, VCs, but really a few. I think things are improving, but there are not so many like, let's say, the usual ICT or the health sector or artificial intelligence, etc. sectors. So because, you know, space was, for many years, was mainly financed by institutions, you know, either the governments or ESA, NASA. It's still the case, but with the new space, we have now an abundance, let's say, of entrepreneurs from the space. And so new mechanisms need to be put in place, and new funds, new fundings. So in terms of funds, there are not so many. In terms of business angel, it's also improving. So we have, for example, within the European Business Angel Network, we have the IBAN space. I'm a member of the executive committee, and we try to federate all the business angels who are passionate about space. So I think this is a good start to probably connect with business angels which are passionate about space. Also in UK, they have a very active UK space tech angel group. And based on what they did in UK, it's what now we are aiming to do in Luxembourg with the Luxembourg Space Tech Angel Group. So probably a good entry point could be to start with either IBAN or the LSTA, or in UK, the UK Space Tech Group.
Thank you, Fabrice. Following up a little bit on that, Mark is asking what the typical investment amount is by business angel investors. You had already made a remark on that, but he's also asking what share of the business would then be handed over to the angel investor.
What is this? The second question? I didn't.
What share does the investor take in the company then?
Okay. So typical investment, you know, space ventures generally request quite a lot of money. However, what I see is that when the project is really at very early stage, the entrepreneurs have all the same issues: to first create the company, to hire the first people, etc. And so generally, they, with just let's say a few €100,000, it's often enough to just start the business. And of course, after that, if you want to put in space a constellation of nanosat or similar things, yes, of course, you need to raise multi-million, but then there are the funds. So the business angels can help, I think, at the very early stage. Also, generally, they will be able to help you on the business side, and I think this is something which is very valuable for entrepreneurs. Regarding the typical shares, I think it depends on the valuation. So typically, it will be according to the amount which is put and the valuation. But I would say if you want to keep enough, let's say, margin for the future, because if then you raise several millions with VCs, etc., I would say initially don't give more than something like 15-20%, because if you already give 50% to a business angel, you will have almost nothing left when there are some other investors that will come. So Yeah.
Okay, great. I hope you still have some time because we're getting quite a number of questions. The next one is about the success rate for receiving investment from a business angel, but they also mentioned here a venture capitalist. Basically, how many opportunities do you look at before you invest, or your colleagues in Alban?
We see really a lot of projects. I would say that you have to understand that there are different kinds of business angels. Let's say the VCs, it's very different, because a VC generally has a period of investment, which can be on 3 or 4 years. And during these 3-4 years, he has to spend the money the limited partners invested in the fund. So generally, a fund, a VC, will have a more, I would say, aggressive investment policy, because he needs to spend the money that they raise from limited partners. The business angel is something different, because, as I explained, it's one money. So the business angel, some business angels, for example, let's say it's a former entrepreneur, he exits a company, he has a couple of millions, and he decides to invest in startups. He could say, look, on 1 year or on 2 years, I want to invest my money. So this could be the case, and then he will actively look at opportunities. There are some business angels which are more opportunistic. They are not in a hurry to invest. They are more looking for the right opportunity. This is my case, for example. I'm not actively looking for opportunities, but if I see a very good opportunity and I describe what I'm looking for, so as the entrepreneur and MTP, what is his moonshot? Does he know his market, his figures, etc.? Is there the right team? Then, yeah, I may consider then the investment. So the success rate, I would say, I think it depends really with the grit that you have in pursuing, let's say, your fundraising, and I think meeting a lot of investors. So you need really to meet a lot of investors, and very important, you need to have a good story. So storytelling is a skill which is not enough, let's say, develop either during studies or even during professional life. So I encourage you to become a master in storytelling. You need to be able to really tell a nice story that will inspire the investor. With that respect, I encourage you to read another book which is called Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff. This is a very good book, how to pitch and how to convince, let's say, investors.
We will send an email to everybody with the names of the books. So if you didn't catch it, don't worry. We'll share with you afterwards. Anya is asking, considering labor laws, tax laws, and everything, which EU country, in your opinion, is the best for establishing a new company? Difficult question, I think.
This is a good question. I should say Luxembourg, but I think Luxembourg for space is becoming really a very good hub for space startups. Not for the creation of company, because to be fully honest with you, it's not. I think it should be easier to create a company in Luxembourg, even if now they introduced the €1 limited company. But anyway, it's still, I think, a bit complicated to create a company in Luxembourg. But beside this, which I think is manageable, so it's not a big deal also. I think that Luxembourg is very nice because there are now the Luxembourg Space Agency. There will be a fund of €100 million to invest in space startups. there is really an ecosystem that is going to be created now in Luxembourg to welcome space entrepreneurs. So I think Luxembourg is a good place in Europe. I think US, of course, has always been good for entrepreneurship, but US is always complicated and hard and tough. But of course, you can try to have your chance in the US. And I would say UK is not bad too, because well, now with the Brexit, we don't know how things will go. But in UK, the investors benefit from a tax break. So this means that they can deduct from their taxes the investment that they did in the startups. So there is a vivid space business angels community in UK. So, and it's quite also easy to create a company in UK. Now the problem with UK is the Brexit, so they will be out of the European Union. And for example, many companies now in UK are going to continental Europe, and also and most of them are going to Luxembourg. So yeah, I think there are many territories. There is no one answer. It also depends where you where you live, where you want to go, etc. So yeah.
Okay. Maximilian has a question, what I presume is about blockchain. Maximilian, you can unmute yourself if I'm explaining it incorrectly to Fabrice. So Maximilian wants to know what your opinion is about smart contracts.
I think smart contract and blockchain, I'm a strong believer of the blockchain as a technology that will allow to really have decentralized platforms. So as of today, many platforms that are, for example, SaaS platform, etc., will probably migrate to blockchain for many reasons. If there is a true decentralization, and of course, smart contract is a key element, let's say, on the blockchain technology. Now we have seen a rise, of ICOs end of last year, and it was a kind of bubble. Now it's becoming harder, let's say, to make an ICO or to develop, let's say, blockchain projects, because many people just wanted to put blockchain everywhere, even if it was not, let's say, appropriate for blockchain. So for example, in the space, there has been a couple of projects involved with blockchain. I think that this is interesting. I have a friend that is making a platform to, like a matchmaking platform to meet, let's say, clients that want to use space services and a supplier of space services, and he wants to offer these services on a platform which is managed on the blockchain. So there are also some projects with all these space resources to have a kind of stock exchange for space resources based on the blockchain. So I think also in the space, we will see more and more projects coming on the blockchain in the future.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. We have 2 more questions.
Yes.
What is the biggest mistake that you see that people make in fundraising?
I think there are different answers to this. I think, as I explained, and I think I strongly insisted on this, not to be prepared. So not to know the market, not to know the figures, etc. Because if you don't know, the investor will ask a few questions, and if the investor sees that you don't know really your business, your stuff, he will not invest. You must give confidence to the investor that you are the master of the project you are presenting to him. So I think this is one thing which is very important, of course. The other thing is when you don't take the investor just for the money, but you don't have a good fit with the investor. Let me explain. So let's say you have not to be desperate about raising funds, because I see some entrepreneurs that are taking the money everywhere where the money is. But you need to ask yourself, do I want to work with this guy, with the investor? Because, you know, the investor, he should be with you probably a couple of years. Maybe he will ask you a seat at the board. So it's someone that you will meet several times per year, that you will spend, let's say, a big part of your journey with him. So you need, I would say, to become somehow friends. I don't say that you will go to holidays with him, but you should, let's say, be friends. So if it's someone you don't like, or you don't see yourself working with, don't take his money, because tomorrow you will have anyway to spend a lot of time with him. So I think this would be a big mistake if you take him just for the money, but you know that you will have difficulties to work with.
Okay. Do business angels usually act as intermediates, contacts, advisors in negotiations with VCs?
Yes, this is a good question. It may happen. I mean, if you made a fundraising round with business angels, and then for the second round you want to have more funds or some VCs, yes, the business angel, moreover, if one of them is a board member, they might help in the discussion with the VC. Maybe they have in their own network some contacts, and they can help. As I said, you know, generally the business angel they want your success, so they want you to succeed, and they should assist in all the ways for you to succeed. So yes, I think that normally they should help you. I know also that some they might have also some interest to do it, because some VCs, for example, when they invest, they want to buy back the shares of the business angels. So the business angels could actually exit when the VC is entering your venture. So some smart business angels might see an opportunity also to cash out when the VC is coming in.
Okay, let me check, but I think we have had all questions for today. In any case, if there's any more questions, please send them to the Accelerator email address, and we will forward them to Fabrice. So Fabrice, I think from everybody here today, thank you very much for sharing with us your views and your insights of how a business angel looks at startups.
Yeah, you're welcome. I think it was. I hope it was useful for the attendees. If you have any question, yes, you can use what Thomas mentioned. You can also go on my blog, and there is my email there, so you can also send me email via this channel. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For the future webinars, we will address a few more interesting topics. We'll also talk about public funding, where you will hear from, for example, from the Copernicus Incubation Program. You will hear from some of the funding programs from ESA, some of the other funding instruments that are available from the European Union. So we will discuss funding once more, but from the public side. And we also have still some information for you on the DIAS. So stay tuned, and thank you very much for joining us tonight. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.